Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast chat. All right, today we're going to cover a piece of news that happened because a lot of people sent it to me and like, hey Jason, could you give your take on this? Even one of my clients sent it over to me and says, how does this even happen? How do we prevent this from happening? And again, for those who haven't seen the video, be prepared. It's pretty graphic. If you go to Larry Wheels' page, videos up there, pretty graphic. And for me as a strength coach, it's hard to have to watch something like that. I hate seeing someone get hurt doing a really, really heavy lift because that was a ridiculously heavy lift. And for those who don't know, apparently, and I have no clue who this guy is. I know who Larry Wills is, obviously. I've never heard of this guy. I guess he trains with Larry sometimes or a lot of times. I think he's a bodybuilder by the name of Ryan Crowley. And although I don't normally cover bodybuilding because I don't care about it, this happened while training with Larry Wheels, who is in the strength world, and it's up on his wall. So, for those who are unaware, the guy went to do an incline bench because I guess Larry did a big AMRAP with 405 for a lot of reps on the incline, which is ridiculous in and of itself. Most of us will never be anywhere near that strength level. So it's crazy to see that. Talking about even 405 for one, let alone AMRAPing it on an incline bench. Well, his friend went to do 495, that's what it appeared to be to me, 5 plates aside. He went to lower it, and his pec tore before it even got to his chest. And it's you can tell watching the video, it is fully detached. So when the guy's saying, hey, I'm going to have surgery, there is no doubt about that. You can tell anyone who understands what happened because his pec completely detached, retracted across his chest while he tried to hold onto the bar. Pretty much they had to catch the bar and he fell down to the floor. And I'm sure he was in a lot of pain. That's got to be excruciatingly painful. So people are saying, hey, how do we prevent this from happening? Number one, you've got to remember all these guys involved are probably abusing very large amounts of gear. And I don't define use and abuse as the same thing, but I'm not going to get into all that. Guys at this level and this sort of size are absolutely abusing gear. And bodybuilders are particularly known for liking substances that have a history of weakening cross bridges in your connective tissue. Stuff like Winstrol being one of the worst offenders, and Tren is actually potentially up there. I've not seen real data on it, but I have seen experts, people with PhDs in relevant fields who have said Tren may actually weaken tendons. Probably possible. I don't know that for a fact, but again, some pretty intelligent, educated people have stated that. But we know there's data on things like Winstrol doing it, and bodybuilders tend to love both of these substances, for obvious reasons for what they do. I'm not saying this is the case with everything that people take, although in general, there can be that tendency with any of these things for muscle tissue to outpace connective tissue hypertrophy. And when that happens, we are at risk of tears. And people will usually say, well, how do people get hurt? Is it bad form? Is it going too heavy? Usually not. Most training, sorry, I'm not quite centered here. Most training injuries are overuse related. So you can look at the situation and go, okay, what had he been doing previous to this? It's not about always this one isolated incident, although in this case we see something that went really wrong, and I'll get to that in a minute. But what had he previously been doing? Did he have a lot of overuse issues in his pec tendons, right? Had he been rotating exercises correctly? Had his training volumes been appropriate going into this? If training volumes are excessively high and you're just using gear to recover from it, you're going to be more prone to injuries, right? You're going to be more prone to injuries because 90% of lifting injuries are overuse related. Now, in this case, something I noticed, and I'd say was a big factor when Ryan went to unrack the bar, it was very, very clear to me To me as a coach, he was not going to be able to lift that weight. That weight was outside of his ability to incline press, completely outside of his ability. And you can tell on the eccentric, he was so shaky, he was unstable. That was too much weight. And I heard someone, one of the first people who reported it, and I haven't seen evidence of this, who had said he was doing partials. Okay, now, if that's the case, and I can get to that in a minute, then that's absolutely what happened. Partials on heavy partials done just in the air on any sort of chest press are notorious for ripping pecs. Notorious for it. Don't do it. It's stupid. There is no reason for you to ever do that. But he couldn't handle the weight. Now, if it's because he was not doing full reps and therefore it was heavier than he could touch to his chest and press off of, that would explain what happened. That would absolutely explain it, because he couldn't handle that weight. And again, you could see it on the unrack. And so here's what I would say to guys. When you go to unrack any sort of press, I don't care whether it's a bench press, flat bench, incline, decline, whatever. If when you unrack it, you're shaky and it feels too heavy, re-rack it. You're done. Don't even try it. Don't even lower it. Not worth it. And you know the weight's too heavy when you unrack it. When it feels too heavy in your hands, you know. And you could tell from his body language that his peripheral nervous system was telling him, I can't lift this weight. And when he lowered it, his pec ripped. It was too much weight for him at the time. Now, could it be that he already had a lot of inflammation in the pec tendon and his peripheral nervous system was giving a warning that, hey, we've got a problem here, don't do this? But here's the thing. It's what I like to call trend brain. And this is one of the things I point out to guys. When you start taking certain stuff, there are psychological side effects. And trend brain is one of the things that I've noticed that boosts guys' confidence to the point of stupidity. Guys will attempt to do things that they are not capable of doing. They think that they can do anything. Okay? When the trend hits their brain. And it's oftentimes attempting lifts they're incapable of doing. Feats of strength that they are incapable of doing. Because when guys go on it, a lot of times you'll see guys who really think that they are the toughest, baddest mofo in the world. Because that's what it's telling their brain. They think that they could beat anybody in a fight. Doesn't matter who it is, even if they have no training. They think they're invincible. They think they can lift any weight. So that could be a factor. But definitely he couldn't handle that weight. He should have just re-racked it. You could tell when he unracked it. There's your lesson, people. There's your big lesson for those. How do we prevent this? Well, when you unrack a weight like that and you know you can't lift it, re-rack it. Re-rack it. Because you could see the warning signs. Before he even lowered the weight, and as soon as he started trying to lower it, it was a problem. You could tell his bar path was wrong. He didn't have control. He did not have control of that weight. But what about the partials? That's a big one. I always tell people, if you're going to do partials on any sort of chest press, because again, I don't know for a fact that's what he was doing, but it's a worthy topic. In case it was what he was doing, because some people said it was. I don't know that that's a fact. But when you're doing partials on any sort of chest press, you will eventually risk tearing a pec. Because you're usually using a heavier weight than you can touch and pause to your chest. Okay? And what happens is that you get used to doing it. Let's say your bench is 300 pounds, but you're doing 350 for partials. What happens if you've been stopping 5 inches off of your chest with that and you accidentally go to 4 inches off of your chest? The weight drops. It just plows into your chest with more weight than you were capable of handling, more than 10% heavier than your one rep max. So when that happens, pecs tend to tear. Okay? Pecs tend to tear. If you're going to do partials on any chest press, do board presses. There's a reason these things exist. You can control the consistency. It's still going to be like a bench press because you still get the same pause and everything. It's a soft touch. Right? Use boards. And if something goes wrong, the weight that's too heavy for you can't come all the way down to your chest. You have a physical object preventing it. There's a reason power lifters use these things for partials. And it feels like a lot of times the bodybuilding world is 50 years behind. They're completely unaware of what anyone else is doing. And that's, again, if that's what happened here, that would also explain it. Because it would mean that he was trying to use weights that he couldn't actually touch his chest with. And it was just too much weight, and it just ripped everything when it came down. That's a possibility too. So don't do that, ever, for any reason. If you're going to feel the need to do a partial for whatever reason, assuming you need it for programming purposes, do board presses, and I have bench blocks for that, right? That's your solution. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.